All right. So those of you at home, you are going to want to have a graphing calculator today. And in case you don't, I just want to show you one more time how to find one. If you go and search MN Test Prep Calculator, what will come up is standalone calculators, and you click on that. Then you click on grades 8 and 11. And then you hit start twice. And then there's a calculator icon in the middle of the bottom of the toolbar. And then you hit clear. And that will give you one for your MacBook that you can use until you get one. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we are going to learn graphing and how to find x-intercepts on a graph, how to find them algebraically, and then we're going to learn how to graph lines and see where they intersect on the x-axis so that we can do that. So we're going to be graphing lines and finding the intercepts today. So the intercepts are where a line crosses, like the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So this has an x-intercept of 2, 0. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So the y-intercept of this is 0, 6. Now today, when they ask us for the x-intercept, we do not have to write it as an ordered pair. We can just say x-intercept is 2 and y-intercept is 6. So we don't have to write them as ordered pairs. So when you look at something that's graphed and they ask you for the x-intercept, it's just asking you where does it cross the x-axis, and this one is at 2, okay? And then the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which in this case is at -4. Okay. This next one, the x-intercept, what do you think it would be for this one?
None.
None, correct? And then the y-intercept would be at 3. Okay. And then when I look at this one, the x-intercept, so you can have several x-intercepts. You can have more than one y-intercept. This particular one has 2 x-intercepts. There's one in between -2 and -4, so that would be -3. This one is at 2. And then my y-intercept is right here, and that is at -6. Okay. All right. Another thing that they're going to ask you to do today is algebraically find the x and y intercepts. Okay. These are the rules in case you ever forget what to do algebraically. But basically, if you're trying to find the x-intercept, you set your y equal to 0 to clear out your y term and solve for x. If you're finding your y-intercept, you set x equals 0 because that'll clear up your x term, and you solve for y. So if we look at this first one here, say that I want to find the x-intercept first. One thing that we have to know today is that y and f of x are the same thing. So you can think of this as y equals -1/3 x plus 1. Y and f of x are the same, okay? Then what we're going to do, if we're looking for the x-intercept, we put 0 in for y and solve for x. So I'm going to put 0 in for y. Okay. Now what I can do is bring the 1 over just like normal algebra. And I get -1 equals -1/3 x. Now, what I do when I have a fraction in front of the x like that, I multiply by its reciprocal on both sides. Do you guys know what the reciprocal of -1/3 is?
3.
Yeah. And it's not the negative reciprocal like when we did slope. It would always have the same sign. So if this one's -1/3, the reciprocal would be -3. So they stay the same sign. Okay. Now here your negatives go to positive, so we don't worry about that. Our 3's cancel. So on the right side here I have x, and 3 times a -1 is -3. That is my x-intercept.
But didn't you multiply it by -3?
I did. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that would actually be 3, okay? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to find our y-intercept, and when you do that, you put 0 in for x, and you try to solve for y. So you're just gonna put 0 in there for x. And what's gonna happen then is that whole term is gonna kind of go away, cancel out. And so what you would have then, anything times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. Now, in this entire class, what we have been doing is using the slope-intercept method to graph lines. Some people only use this, and they find their x-intercept and they find their y-intercept, and then they would go to their graph. And as long as you know 2 points on any line, you can draw a line. So they would go and put their x-intercept at 3, their y-intercept at 1, and they have what should be a straight line. Mine doesn't look straight, but it should be. Okay? So anytime you know the x and y intercept, you can graph a line.
Were we supposed to draw that?
No, no, I was just showing you that. Okay, so now if we look at this one, again, we're gonna do it algebraically. So we're gonna put 0 in for y at first, and we're gonna find our x-intercept. So we're gonna subtract 7, and we get -7 equals -2x, divide by -2, and x equals, now you could write this a number of ways. A negative divided by a negative is positive, so we can write that as 7/2. That's reduced. It is improper, but it's reduced. 7/2 is also 3.5, which you could write it like that, and it's also 3.5. You decide how you want to write that, but just so you know, all 3 of those are acceptable. Okay. Then when we go to our y-intercept again, what happens with that is we let our x equal 0. So this crosses out, so can you tell right away what y would equal? 7. Yeah, because this would be -2 times 0. And anything times 0 is 0. 0 plus 7 is 7. So if you had to graph that, you'd go on your x-axis, go to 3.5, go on your y-axis to 7, connect those dots, and you would graph that line. Okay? So the second thing that we're going to talk about today is they'll give us something and they'll ask us for our roots or our zeros. And the first thing that you guys have to understand is if they ask you for the x-intercept, the roots, or the zeros, all 3 of those are the same thing, okay? What those are, what they're asking you for is where they cross the x-axis. And do you guys know when you solve an equation, what you're really finding is where it crosses the x-axis. That's the answer to an equation when you solve for x. Okay? So if I take that equation and I think about, okay, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to solve it algebraically, because there's going to be times today that you have a choice of 3 different ways to solve an equation. First way is always using algebra. So we can add 3 here, and we would get 3 equals negative 3/4 x. And again, what I would do then is multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal of negative 3/4, it keeps the sign. So don't think that they have to be opposite signs. They're the same signs. And here I'd multiply it by negative 4/3. Now this is really like negative 4/3 times 3/1. Would you guys know that these 3's cancel? And what you would be left with there is negative 4. And then over here, 3's cancel, 4's cancel. Negative times negative is positive, so that is x. If you're unsure, yep, Olivia?
So is multiplying by negative 4/3 the same as multiplying by 4 and then dividing by 3?
Multiplying by negative 4 and dividing by 3. Yeah, you could do it that way. Yep. The other thing I was going to tell you too, like say you get something and you're not quite sure, like how do I simplify this? If you had negative 4/3 times 3, that's easy to put it into your graphing calculator. You can just go parentheses, negative 4 divided by 3. That's how you always put in a fraction. And then you multiply it by 3, and it'll tell you it's negative 4. So if you ever get something that you're not sure about, you can always just punch it in, okay? So a root, a 0, and an x-intercept are asking you for the same things. And they'll ask you for 3 different things today, but they're all talking about the same thing. So that is one way that you can solve it. The second way that you could solve it is to use graph paper. Okay, so we could look at this and notice really what that is negative 3/4 x minus 3. And I could put a y in front of that and just solve that or graph that line. Now if I look here, my slope is negative 3/4. And my y-intercept is negative 3. So I could go to my graph, go down to negative 3, go down 1, 2, 3, and write 1, 2, 3, 4, and keep doing that. And going down and right 3 is the same as going up 3 and left 4. Or I'm sorry, down 3, right 4 is the same as going up 3, left 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you graph this, what we are looking for today is, in this case, when it asks for the roots, is where does it cross the x-axis? Right here at negative 4. So that's your second way. The third way that you can do it is by using your graphing calculator, and that's what we're going to learn now. So everybody take your graphing calculator. Okay, and we have a couple of things that we need to do. The first thing is, especially I know, aren't a couple of you in stats class right now? Okay, so if you're in stats, or like sometimes calculators just get a stat plot turned on somehow, and we have to make sure they're not turned on. So here is how you do that. If you go second, y equals, you should get something like this, and every once in a while, like if you notice I have 3 plots, mine are all turned off. Every once in a while, one of yours will get turned on, and what we would want to do is go down to whatever number says plot off. So in this case, it's 4. You can either hit number 4 and hit enter, or you can use your down arrow, go down to the one that says plots off, hit enter, and it's going to come up to this screen, but it's not turning them off yet until you hit enter again and it says done. Now, do you have to do this every time you graph? No. But if you ever graph and you get an error message, a lot of times it'll say like invalid dimension. That means go and see if you have a stat plot on, okay? Now, we're gonna try to plot that line, and I just need to get some notes so I know what I'm punching in. We are gonna try to plot that line. Okay, so let's go to y equals, okay? Make sure you don't have any equations in here at all. If you do, go to them and hit clear, okay? Go to your y equals, and we're gonna plug in that graph that we just graphed. And it's -3/4 x. Now, how I do that, I use my parentheses, okay? Here's another place that kids get mixed up. They use the subtraction key for negative rather than the actual negative key, which is to the left of the enter sign. So go -3 divided by 4 parentheses, okay? Then you do your x, and x is to the right of the green alpha key. And then you do -3, and here you use your subtraction key, -3. Now, some of you may have screwed up your, do you guys remember when we graphed before and we screwed this up? We changed these?
Yeah.
The most normal or most common window that you'd ever have is -10 to 10. That means your x-axis is going to start over here at -10, be over here on the right at +10. And usually you count by 1, and that's what the SX scale means. Your most normal y starts down here at -10, goes up here to +10, and we count by 1. If yours has ever changed and you need to fix that, a super fast way to do that is if you use your zoom key right there, the top one, top row, middle one, you can hit number 6. It says Z standard. That will give you those dimensions on your window. So if you go down to number 6, or just hit 6 and hit enter, that will put that for you, okay? Now, what we want on this graph is just, what is this point right here where it crosses the x-axis? And you can look at that and you can probably tell, but we should make sure that it's at exactly -4. So here's what I do. I have to use this trace key, and you have to do second trace, okay? So hit second trace. And what we want is the zeros, which means roots, which means x-intercepts. They're all the same. So let's go down to 0, hit enter. Now, you're going to have a flashing cursor, and you want that cursor to be to the left of where your line crosses the x-axis at like -4 there. So I'm going to use my left arrow key to move my cursor so that it is to the left of x equals -4. Now, if yours is not moving on the line, if it's moving on an axis or something like that, what that means is you didn't hit second trace, okay? Now, it's asking you for a left bound point. That's just asking you, where's a point to the left of your x-intercept? We got it there, so we hit enter, and a vertical line should appear. Then it's asking for a right bound point, so we hit our right button, and we're going to watch our cursor go so that it's to the right of that x-intercept, and we're going to hit enter again, and a vertical line should appear.
I just got an arrow, no vertical one. It's like 2 arrows. That's what I want.
Okay, you got errors or
Arrows.
arrows?
Arrows.
Oh, okay, that might be your calculation.
Yeah.
So
I
I think, okay, that's maybe just a function on the CE version. Did you guys just get these two arrows?
Yeah.
Okay, don't worry about that. That's just a different in calculators. I didn't realize yours didn't have the vertical line. Okay. You have just the arrows?
I have
No, she's talking about if you have a CE, then we can go on.
If you have
don't
the
have
CE version of the calculator, you'll have the vertical line. If you don't, then you'll just have these little arrows on top. Now it's going to ask you to guess. They want you to kind of move the arrow or that cursor. I don't do that. I just hit enter again. And it tells me what my x coordinate of my x-intercept or 0 or root is. So my answer is -4. So at first you might think, well, that took us forever, but it's once you do it once, you're gonna be fast at it. So our answer is -4. Yes.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
So I hit enter on that side, and on this side,
You know, I would go second trace again, get out of it, put on to 2. Now go with your left key, so it's to the left of it. Hit enter. Go with your right key, hit enter. And now you're going to hit enter one more time. And then that's your 0. Okay. How about those of you at home? Is anyone having troubles at home? Are you guys all okay? All right, just holler if you're not. If you have an issue, just let me know. All right, so let's go down here and let's all just use our graphing calculators for this one. We're not going to use algebra, which would be easy to do, but we're not. We're not going to use graph paper. We're just going to use our calculators. So let's go to our calculator again. Hit your y equals and clear. And now what that was -6x, make sure you use the negative key, 6x, and then plus 18. Once you get that plugged in, then you're going to try to do that second trace again, okay? So I could graph it just to see what it looks like. That would be fine. But I could go right to my second trace, go down to 0. Okay. Now you can't see your cursor sometimes. What that means is your cursor is either really high up above the graph on the line or it's really far down here. Typically in this situation, I would assume it's up high. So I would use my right arrow key and keep hitting it repeatedly and see if it shows up. If it doesn't, then I would start hitting my left and assume it's going to come from the bottom and eventually show up. Okay?
Wait, what did you say? Why is mine not on the line?
So if it's not on the screen, that means your cursor is way up here.
No, I mean like it's not on the line. Like it's on the screen.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Then you only hit trace, you didn't hit second trace. So if your cursor is not on the actual diagonal line, that means you hit trace, not second trace, okay? Once it's to the left of the x-intercept, we hit enter. Then it's asking me for a point to the right of the x-intercept. I hit enter. It asked me to guess. I hit enter again, and my x-intercept is 3. This
Wait, what do
particular,
you mean guess?
it asks you to guess.
It just says the guess.
So here, if I go back down, you find a point on the left, you find a point on the right, and you see right here it says guess.
Oh yeah.
When it says that, you just enter again, and it'll tell you the answer. So our answer is 3. if you look back here, this would be a super easy one to do without graphing. So you're gonna determine today, like, how do I wanna do this? Do I wanna do algebra? Do I wanna use my graphing calculator? Do I wanna use graph paper? Okay, so.
When I press enter, it just says error.
So, yeah, did you go to the left of the x-intercept first and then to the right of it second?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, let's go back. If I pick this up, put my calculator here, and if I go, whoops, second trace down to number 2, and if I were you, I'd start over. Go second trace down to number 2, hit enter. And here's what I mean. You always have to choose a point to the left of the x-intercept first. So do you see your cursor on the diagonal line right now?
Yes.
Is it to the left of like x equals 3, like mine is? So hit enter, then use your right key and go to the right of x equals 3 on your diagonal line. Hit enter again. When it says guess, just hit enter a third time, and then it should tell you. Did it?
Yeah, it did this time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's do these word problems here. It says Adrian downloaded albums to his smartphone. Each album costs $1.25. He also paid a subscription fee of $8. If the total cost for the download and subscription fee was $15.50, how many albums did he download? Again, might be something you do not have to write much down for. You could just kind of figure it out. But in case it wasn't, I need to show you a way. So we're gonna let X equal the number of albums, okay? And then each album that he buys is $1.25. So what we're gonna do is write 125 times X. That's the amount of money he pays on his actual album. Then he one time has to pay a subscription fee. So I'm gonna add that $8. He doesn't pay that every time he buys something, he just pays it one time. And in all, he spent $15.50. So we're gonna go 15.5. Now what I'm gonna do, this one, I am just gonna use algebra. And I get 1.25x equals 7.5, divide by 1.25. And this should be a whole number. If it's not, you've done something wrong. What did you guys get, 6?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the amount of albums that he bought, is 6. That's your answer. Okay. This next one says, a baker buys supplies to make 5 loaves of bread. The supplies cost $8. He would like to know what price to put on each loaf to make a profit of $12. Write an equation and solve it to find what the baker should charge for each loaf of bread. So again, we're gonna let X equal the money for each loaf of bread. So what he's gonna charge for one loaf, okay? Now, he is going to make 5 loaves of bread, okay? So it's gonna be 5 times what he's gonna charge, okay? That's how much money he is taking in for the loaves of bread. But we have to subtract what it cost him to make the bread. What did it cost him to buy supplies? $8. And once he makes his money and spends for the supplies, subtracts that, he wants to make a profit of $12. Okay, so then you just go ahead. This again is an easy one to do with algebra. So we get 5x equals 20. And some of you are bright enough to just have done this without even writing it down, just kind of plugging numbers in and using trial and error. But he would have to sell 4 loaves of bread, or no, 5 loaves of bread at $4 each. And then that's $20. When he subtracts his $8 supplies, he would get $12. Okay? All right. There will be a few today where you're given a graph and you're asked to find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. I think typically today you'll only have one y-intercept, but you may have more than one x-intercept for sure, okay? So here we can assume that these are at actual whole numbers today. You know how like earlier in the chapter you got to say near x equals 1? Here we can just assume it's at a whole number. So we're going to assume, you see how this is between 0 and -4? So where would that one be at? -2. And then this one is between 0 and 2, so it'd be at 1. And this one's between 2 and 4, so at 3. And our y-intercept, what do you think that's at? 6. Good. That's all you have to do for this. Okay? So that's fast. Now, when you guys get your problems today, if it asks you to do it algebraically, I would like you to do that. If it asks you to graph it, I'm giving you the option to use, you could still use algebra if you wanted. You could use graph paper. I'm guessing people won't choose that, but you could. Or you could use your calculator and just plug it in and get the answer, okay? This one, we are going to solve it algebraically first. Okay, so I'm going to add 2. Oh, wait, I have to put 0 in for my y, and I didn't do that yet. So here I'm finding the x-intercept, so I have to put 0 in for y, and I skipped that step, sorry. So now I would get 2 equals -5/8x, and my 2's cancel. And again, what I do here is I multiply by the reciprocal. Because that one is negative, ours is going to be negative. They're always the same sign. And it would be -8/5 on both sides. Okay? Now, 8's cancel over here. 5's cancel. A negative times a negative is a positive. So on the right side, we just have x. On the left side, this is over 1. So if you wanted to do it just in your head, you'd go -8 times 2 is -16. And then 5 times 1 is 5. And that's improper because the top number is bigger, but it is reduced. There's nothing that goes into 16 and 5, so we can leave it like that. Another way you could have done that is you could have done on your calculator -8/5 times 2, and then your calculator would have given it to you as a decimal, and it would have been -3.2. You also could have thought of it as a mixed number and kind of went, okay, I'm going 5 into 16. That's going to go 3 times, which is 15. I'd have 1 left over, so that's 3 1/5. Any of those are absolutely fine. So -16/5 or -3.2 or -3 1/5. Okay? Now, we are going to do that same thing on our graphing calculators. Okay, so let's do that. We are going to type in, go to your y equals and clear. And we are going to type in -5/8. So I'm going to go parenthesis, -5 divided by 8, parenthesis, x, and then subtract 2. You could hit graph and see where it goes through, But to get the actual number and make sure, you're gonna go second trace down to number 2 for 0. Move your left arrow so that your flashing cursor on the diagonal line is to the left of where it crosses the x-axis. Hit enter. Move your arrow to the right so it's to the right of where it crosses the x-axis. Hit enter again, and it tells you that it's negative 3.2. Okay? So again, if you like that better than doing it on, algebraically, you kind of have a choice. Well, I shouldn't say that. Unless it says to do it algebraically, then you have to. If it says to do it graphing, then you have your choice.
But
So-
we don't actually have to graph it.
You don't have to graph it on a graph, no. Let's try this one that has 2 fractions, just so I can show you it on a graphing calculator, how you would do that. So let's go back to our calculator. Let's go to y equals, and let's clear it. And we are gonna type in parenthesis, -5 divided by 4 parenthesis. That's for the -5/4. Then we're gonna hit X, and then we're gonna go plus, and we're gonna put 15/4 in as a fraction also. So we're gonna go parenthesis, 15 divided by 4 parenthesis. You could hit graph to see where that would go through. And then you're gonna go second trace down to number 2. Have your cursor to the left of where it crosses the x-axis. Move your cursor to the right of the x-axis where it crosses. It asks you to guess, hit enter again. And did you all get 3? Yes. Everybody okay with that? So,
whenever it's in a fraction, you just put it in parentheses.
yes, and do it as a division problem. Yes. So your assignment for today is this, okay? And then tomorrow, which would be Friday, oh yeah, you guys are not joining class. Do you all know that? Because I'm getting my vaccine tomorrow. So you're just going to be all assumed to be present. I won't mark anyone absent. And you just have to work on your practice test tomorrow. Okay. And then Monday is test for Group A and all 9th graders. Tuesday is test for Group B. 9th graders on Tuesday will have a study hall kind of thing. Okay? All right? So, questions on anything? Don't worry about class tomorrow. Just make sure you do the practice test.
I have a
Yep.
so our practice test is online tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I gave it out yesterday in class. Did you grab one?
Nope.
The rest of you, did you guys grab the practice test yesterday? I thought I set it out.
Yeah.
I did? Okay. If not, Zach, yes, I'll have that posted. I'll probably send it out in a chat, both the practice test and the key for it. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll do that tomorrow. I'll probably do it in the morning. And I'll send a 1st hour chat and a 5th hour chat. So if you check your chat in the morning, you'll see the practice test will be attached as well as the key for it. Okay?
Yep.
And then be ready for your test Monday and Tuesday. Anyone else have questions for me? I hope you could follow along with the graphing calculator. All right, guys, have a great day and a good weekend, because I won't talk to you guys till Monday now. Okay? Have a great day. Goodbye.